Rachel Reeves faces a storm of criticism after the latest economic figures reveal the UK economy grew by just 0.1% between July and September, an alarming slowdown that places Britain near the bottom of the G7 growth rankings. The Chancellor, addressing the grim statistics, acknowledged her dissatisfaction, saying, "Am I satisfied with the numbers? Of course not. There's a lot more to do to turn around the growth performance of the last decade or so." But her words have done little to calm the waters, as opposition voices and economists alike question whether Labour's ambitious plans are already faltering. Let's dive into this explosive story, starting with Reeves's Mansion House speech.
My confidence in Britain has never burned brighter. There are huge opportunities, whether it's here at Tokamak Energy or at Quell Therapeutics, where I was earlier in this week. But what those businesses need is stability and investment, public and private, to realise the huge growth potential that we have as a country, and that's what this government are focused on. Growth is the number one mission of this new government. We want that growth to be felt more quickly by families up and down the country, which is why in our first week in government I set out an ambitious set of planning reforms and the creation of a national wealth fund. And it's why in my Mansion House speech last night I announced some of the biggest reforms of our pension system in a generation to unlock long-term patient capital, up to £80 billion, to help invest in small businesses and scale-up businesses and in the infrastructure needs. We're 4 months into this government. There's a lot more to do to turn around the growth performance of the last decade or so.
Reeves's remarks about the last decade haven't gone unnoticed. Critics accuse the Chancellor of deflecting responsibility as the economy shows signs of stagnation, despite Labour's promises to deliver growth and prosperity. Adding fuel to the fire is the stark reality that GDP per capita, a key metric Labour has championed, actually fell by 0.1% during the same period. Let's break it all down in today's scandalous main story. When Labour swept into power earlier this year, they promised bold reforms to restore the UK's struggling economy. But now, just 4 months into Rachel Reeves's tenure as Chancellor, those promises are beginning to look increasingly hollow. The latest figures from the Office for National Statistics, ONS, are damning. GDP growth slowed to just 0.1% in the third quarter, down sharply from the 0.5% growth seen earlier this year. Even worse, the economy actually contracted by 0.1% in September, casting a shadow over the modest gains of previous months. Economists had expected growth of 0.2% for the quarter, already a low bar, but Reeves's government fell short, leaving the UK trailing behind major economies like the US, which posted 0.7% growth, and the Eurozone, which managed 0.4%. The result? Britain is now languishing near the bottom of the G7 growth league, raising questions about Labour's ability to deliver on its ambitious promises. The Chancellor sought to stem the criticism during her Mansion House address, where she unveiled plans to reform the UK's pension system. Reeves promised to unlock £80 billion in long-term capital, directing funds to small businesses, infrastructure projects and other growth-focused initiatives. But her announcement was met with scepticism. While pension reforms may pay dividends in the long term, many are questioning whether they will come soon enough to rescue Labour from mounting political and economic pressure. Tory MPs were quick to seize on Reeves's comments, accusing her of making excuses. Jacob Rees-Mogg delivered a stinging critique, saying, "Rachel Reeves may talk about unlocking capital, but what she's really unlocking is a door to even greater economic stagnation. Labour's policies are untested, unproven, and unfit for purpose." Even within Labour's own ranks, whispers of doubt are reportedly growing. Some MPs privately question whether Reeves's focus on pensions will be enough to counteract the broader structural challenges facing the UK economy, including a sluggish services sector that grew by just 0.1% this quarter. Adding to the Chancellor's woes is a stark warning from the Bank of England. Last week, the Monetary Policy Committee, MPC, released its quarterly report, projecting that Reeves's £70 billion package of tax and borrowing measures would contribute to higher inflation over the next 2 years. Inflation, which is already above target, is now expected to linger at elevated levels until 2027, delaying much-needed interest rate cuts. The implications are clear. Reeves's budget may provide a short-term boost to GDP, but it risks fueling further price pressures, a politically toxic combination. Conservative MPs have been quick to pounce on this potential weakness, with Liz Truss, the former Prime Minister, calling Labour's fiscal strategy a recipe for disaster. She told reporters, "Inflation is already squeezing households, and now we're being told it will persist for even longer, thanks to Labour's reckless spending spree. Rachel Reeves needs to get serious about economic discipline." Meanwhile, business leaders have expressed concern over the slow pace of recovery. The sluggish performance of the UK's vital services sector, which accounts for the majority of economic activity, has dampened hopes of a robust rebound. Even the construction sector, which grew by an impressive 0.8% this quarter, hasn't been able to offset the drag caused by other areas of the economy. One of the most damaging comparisons for Labour is the UK's position within the G7. While Reeves has touted Labour's plans as the key to long-term growth, the numbers tell a different story. The UK's 0.1% growth for the quarter falls far behind the 0.7% growth recorded in the US and the 0.4% growth achieved in the Eurozone. Even Germany and Japan, often criticised for their slower economic recoveries, outpaced Britain during this period. For Labour, the optics couldn't be worse. As the party that promised to make Brexit work and restore the UK's global standing, being stuck near the bottom of the G7 growth rankings is a symbolic and strategic setback. With Labour on the defensive, the Conservatives have wasted no time in capitalising on the economic turmoil. Chancellor Reeves's Mansion House speech, intended to showcase Labour's long-term vision, has been overshadowed by relentless attacks from Tory MPs and media outlets. Former Chancellor George Osborne offered a withering assessment of Reeves's performance, saying, "4 months in, and all Labour can point to is excuses. Where is the growth? Where are the results? This government is failing to deliver." Meanwhile, right-wing commentators have seized on the economic figures to paint Labour as incompetent and out of touch. One columnist quipped, "Rachel Reeves talks about ambition, but all we see is stagnation. Labour's economic strategy is starting to look like a house of cards." As if Labour didn't already have enough problems, Downing Street is facing backlash over a poorly organised Diwali celebration. Attendees were served meat and alcohol, a major faux pas for a festival observed by many Hindus, Jains and Sikhs, who abstain from such items during religious occasions. Prominent Conservative MP Shivani Raja blasted Labour for its complete ignorance of cultural traditions, saying, "This isn't just a mistake, it's a sign of Labour's total failure to engage with the diverse communities they claim to represent." Number 10 issued a formal apology, promising that the error would not happen again, but the damage has been done, with critics accusing Keir Starmer's government of being out of touch with Britain's vibrant Indian diaspora. Shadow Foreign Secretary Priti Patel called the incident a slur on the Hindu community and demanded a more thoughtful approach in future. What do you think about Labour's economic strategy? Are Reeves's pension reforms the solution to Britain's growth problem, or are they too little, too late? And does Number 10's Diwali gaffe reveal a deeper problem with Labour's cultural awareness? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like, subscribe and hit the bell for more updates on the biggest scandals rocking UK politics.